From heiress to time traveler, the starter package is rich. The sound of the golden gavel slamming on the table still echoed in her ears. Shen Li leaned back in the leather chair, her eyes closed, and a faint smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. After 3 years of open and secret struggles, she had finally defeated 12 brothers and sisters, all of whom were as cunning as foxes, and successfully secured the position of heir to the Shen Group, the top conglomerate in the country. Miss, the board members have all signed the confirmation letter. From today on, you are the legal heir of the Shen Group. The assistant's excited voice came from the side. Shen Li nodded slightly, intending to stand up and say a few concluding words. But suddenly, a sharp pain hit her chest, and her vision went black. The last thing she heard was the assistant's exclamation. Before she lost consciousness, she couldn't help but curse. Damn it, I haven't even had time to spend the money I earned so hard. When she opened her eyes again, the luxurious modern office was gone. Instead, it was a carved wooden bed with a canopy, and the air was filled with a faint scent of osmanthus. Miss, you're awake. Thank goodness, you scared the servants to death. A girl in a light green ancient costume threw herself beside the bed, her eyes red with tears. Shen Li frowned, her head throbbing. She looked around and realized something was wrong. The furniture, the decorations, the girl's clothes, all of these were exactly like the ancient dramas she had watched before. Who are you? Where is this place? Her voice was weak and hoarse, completely different from her usual crisp tone. The girl was stunned for a moment, then cried even harder. Miss, you don't recognize me? I'm Xiao Kui, your personal maid. This is the Shen Mansion in the capital of Dying. You fell into the lake yesterday and have been in a coma until now. Did you hit your head and lose your memory? Shen Li's mind was in chaos. Time travel? She, the newly appointed heir of the Shen Group, actually time traveled? She took a deep breath and tried to calm herself down. As a top student who had fought her way out of a bunch of competitors, she had strong adaptability. She closed her eyes and began to sort out the messy memories in her mind. The original owner was also named Shen Li, the eldest daughter of the Minister of Rights, Shen Guang. Her mother, Madame Su, died of illness when she was young. Soon after, Shen Guang married the current Madame Liu, who brought a daughter named Su Ru with her. The original owner was weak-tempered and had been bullied by Madame Liu and Su Ru all year round. Yesterday, she was pushed into the lake by Su Ru during a dispute in the garden, and that's why she lost her life, allowing her to take over. And the worst part was that the original owner had a fiancé, a Tanhualang named Lin Wenshuan. But this Lin Wenshuan was a fickle man. He saw that Madame Liu was favored by Shen Guang and that Su Ru was more charming than the original owner, so he hooked up with Su Ru secretly. Now the two of them were already in love with each other, and they were just waiting for an opportunity to ask Shen Guang to dissolve the engagement between Shen Li and Lin Wenshuan. Tsk, what a miserable original owner, Shen Li muttered to herself. She had just escaped from the fierce battle of the wealthy family's inheritance, and now she had to face a stepmother and a scheming stepsister. It was really a continuous struggle. Xiao Kui heard her words and quickly said, Miss, you must cheer up. Don't let those two bullies bully you anymore. Shen Li nodded, then asked, By the way, where is my mother's dowry? Are they all kept properly? According to the memories of the original owner, Madame Su was from a prominent family, and her dowry was extremely rich. When Xiao Kui heard this, her eyes lit up. Miss, don't worry. Madame left you a lot of property. There are 10 shops on the busiest street in the capital, 3 villages with fertile land, and a private treasury filled with gold, silver, and jewelry. Moreover, Madame had already made a will before she died, and all these properties are under your name. Even the master can't touch them. Because Madame's natal family is powerful, the master and Madame Liu don't dare to covet your property easily. Shen Li's eyes suddenly brightened. If the bad news was that she had to face a scheming stepmother and stepsister and a scumbag fiancé, then the good news was that she was a super rich woman in this world. With so much money, she could completely live a carefree life without having to look at anyone's face. Great! Shen Li couldn't help but sit up, ignoring the faint pain in her body. Xiao Kui, go get me the list of my mother's dowry. I need to check it. Yes, miss, Xiaokui quickly ran out. Not long after, Xiaokui came back with a thick stack of account books. Shen Li took them and flipped through them carefully. The more she looked, the more satisfied she was. Madame Su was really a powerful woman. The shops were all in prime locations. The land was fertile, and the private treasury was even more impressive. There were not only gold and silver, but also various rare antiques and jade articles. With this money, I can lie flat for the rest of my life. Shenli put down the account books and stretched lazily. She had worked too hard in her previous life, and in this life, she just wanted to enjoy life. Just as she was thinking about how to spend the money, the sound of a maid's report came from outside the door. Miss, Madam and Miss Su are here. Shenli raised her eyebrows. Speak of the devil. She leaned back on the soft pillow and said coldly, Let them in. Soon, a middle-aged woman in a richly decorated dress and a young girl in a pink dress walked in. The middle-aged woman was Madame Liu, and the young girl was Su Ru. As soon as Su Ru entered the room, she put on a worried look and walked to the bed. Sister, are you okay? I was so worried about you yesterday. I didn't mean to push you into the lake. It was an accident. Madame Liu also echoed, Yes, Lear. Ruer is still young, and she didn't mean it. You are her elder sister, so you should be more tolerant of her. If it were the original owner, she would have been bullied into tears by them long ago. But now it was Shen Li. She sneered and said, Accident? Miss Su, when you pushed me, your hands were so strong. I don't think it was an accident. As for being tolerant, I think it's you who should be taught a lesson. After all, pushing the master into the lake is a capital offense. Su Ru was stunned. She didn't expect the weak and incompetent Shen Li to speak to her like this. She was so angry that her face turned red. Sister, how can you say that? I really didn't mean it. Whether you meant it or not, the fact is that I fell into the lake because of you. Shen Li's eyes were cold. Xiaokui, go get the family law. Miss Su pushed the master, so she should be punished with 20 slaps. Madame Liu's face changed. Shen Li, you dare. Ruer is my daughter, and I won't let you touch her. Why don't I dare? Shen Li sat up straight, her momentum overwhelming. This is the Shen mansion, but my mother's dowry is my private property. Even my father can't interfere with my affairs here. If you dare to stop me, I'll go to the ancestral hall and ask the ancestors to judge. I'll also send someone to my mother's natal family to tell them how you and your daughter bullied me, the orphan of the Su family. When Madame Liu heard the words Su family, her face turned pale. The Su family was a powerful noble family, and even the emperor had to give them 3 points of face. If the Su family knew that she was bullying Shen Li, she would definitely be in trouble. Su Ru also panicked. She didn't expect Shen Li to be so tough now. She pulled Madame Liu's sleeve and said in a trembling voice, Mother. Shen Li looked at them coldly. Xiaokui, do it now. Xiaokui had long been angry with Madame Liu and Su Ru. Now that she had her young lady's order, she immediately called 2 strong women servants and pressed Su Ru to the ground. With a slap, the first slap fell on Su Ru's face. Su Ru screamed in pain, and Madame Liu wanted to stop her, but she didn't dare to do anything because she was afraid of the Su family. She could only watch Su Ru being slapped one by one. After 20 slaps, Su Ru's face was swollen like a pig's head. She lay on the ground, crying bitterly. Shen Li looked at them indifferently. Get out of here. Don't let me see you again unless I call you. Madame Liu glared at Shen Li angrily, then helped Su Ru up and left in a hurry. After they left, Xiaokui breathed a sigh of relief. Miss, you were so amazing just now. You finally taught those 2 a lesson. Shen Li smiled faintly. It's just a small lesson. If they dare to provoke me again, I'll make them pay a heavier price. Just as she finished speaking, another maid ran in, her face full of excitement and panic. Miss, the palace sent someone. It's the eunuch from the imperial palace. He said he has an imperial edict to announce. Chapter 2. The Imperial Edict of Marriage, a Windfall. Shen Li was stunned. The imperial edict? What did the palace want from her? She quickly got out of bed, put on a formal dress with the help of Xiaokui, and went to the main hall to receive the imperial edict. At this time, Shen Guang had already returned from the court. He was standing in the main hall with a solemn expression. Madame Liu and Su Ru, who had just left, were also standing aside. Suro's face was still swollen, but she didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction at this moment. The eunuch who delivered the imperial edict was wearing a red official uniform. He held a yellow imperial edict in his hand and stood solemnly in the middle of the main hall. Minister Shen Guang, Miss Shen Li, received the imperial edict. The eunuch's sharp voice echoed in the main hall. Shen Guang and Shen Li quickly knelt down, and Madame Liu and Suro also knelt down reluctantly. By the grace of the emperor, the imperial edict says, the Minister of Right's eldest daughter, Shen Li, is gentle and virtuous, with a pure and kind nature. She is worthy of being a noble lady. Now she is bestowed to marry the northern town marquis, Xiao She. The marriage shall be held within 1 month. May the two of them respect each other as guests and live in harmony. This is the imperial edict, so obey it. As soon as the eunuch finished speaking, the entire main hall fell into silence. Everyone was shocked. Shen Guang's eyes widened. He never thought that the emperor would marry his daughter to the northern town marquis, Xiao She. Xiao She was the most powerful general in dying. He had led the army to fight for many years and made countless military achievements. He was deeply loved by the soldiers, but he was also feared by the emperor because his achievements were too high to be rewarded. Moreover, Xiao She was known for being cold-blooded and ruthless. It was said that he had killed countless enemies on the battlefield, and even the Tai-ho and the puppet emperor were killed by him to support his nephew to ascend the throne. Such a person was definitely not a good husband. Madame Liu and Suru were also shocked, but then a trace of joy appeared on their faces. They thought that Shen Li had finally gotten her comeuppance. Marrying such a cold-blooded and ruthless man, Shen Li would definitely not have a good life in the future. Shen Li was also a little confused. Northern Town Marquis, Xiao Si. She searched the original owner's memories, but there was very little information about this person. She only knew that he was a very powerful and terrifying figure. But soon she came to her senses. Since it was an imperial edict, she had no right to refuse. She kowtowed and said, "I obey the imperial edict." The eunuch smiled and handed the imperial edict to Shen Li. "Congratulations, Miss Shen. The northern town marquis is a hero of the country. You are really lucky to marry him." Shen Li forced a smile and took the imperial edict. After sending the eunuch away, Shen Guang looked at Shen Li with a complicated expression. "Lear, are you okay?" "I'm fine, father," Shen Li said calmly. She knew that Shen Guang didn't really care about her. He was just worried that offending the northern town marquis would affect his official career. Madame Liu stepped forward and pretended to be concerned. "Lier, the northern town marquis is a great hero. You should be happy. Don't worry, mother will help you prepare for the wedding." Shen Li sneered in her heart. Happy? She didn't think so. But she didn't show it on her face. She said, "Thank you, mother, but I can handle my own wedding. I don't need to trouble you." After saying that, she turned around and left the main hall, leaving Shen Guang, Madame Liu, and Suru looking at each other. As soon as she returned to her courtyard, Xiao Kuai ran over anxiously. "Miss, how could the emperor marry you to the northern town marquis? I heard that he is very scary. He kills people without blinking an eye." Shen Li sat down and took a sip of tea. She thought for a while and said, "Scary? Maybe, but it's an imperial edict. I have no choice." But in her heart, she was thinking, what kind of person is Xiao Se? Why did the emperor marry her to him? Is there any conspiracy behind this? Just as she was thinking, Suru ran into her courtyard again. This time, she didn't have the previous grievance. Instead, she had a look of schadenfreude on her face. "Sister, congratulations on your marriage to the northern town marquis," Suru said with a sneer. "But I'm afraid you won't be happy for long." Shen Li raised her eyebrows. "What do you mean?" "What do I mean?" Suru said proudly. "I heard that the northern town marquis has someone he likes. He will never like you. He married you just to use the power of the Su family to stabilize his position. Moreover, the northern town marquis is cold-blooded and ruthless. He killed the Empress Dowager and the puppet emperor to support his nephew to ascend the throne. But do you know what will happen to him in the future? He will die on the battlefield in 2 years. At that time, you will become a widow at a young age. Even if you don't die, you will have to keep the widow for the rest of your life." Shenli's eyes suddenly lit up. She grabbed Suru's arm and asked eagerly, "What did you say? Say it again." "The northern town Marcus will support his nephew to ascend the throne and then die on the battlefield in 2 years." Suro was startled by her reaction. She struggled to break free from Shenli's hand and said, "Yes, that's what I heard from the maid in my mother's room. Everyone in the capital knows that the northern town Marcus's nephew is the current prince's son. He has been planning to support his nephew to ascend the throne. But after he succeeds, he will die in the battle against the barbarians in 2 years. Why are you so excited?" Shenli didn't answer her. She was already immersed in joy. Support his nephew to ascend the throne, then die in 2 years? That means that in 2 years, she will have an emperor nephew, and all the property of the northern town Marcus's mansion will be hers, because she is Xiaoxie's legal wife. After Xiaoxie dies, she will inherit all his property as a widow, and she already has a lot of money left by her mother. If she adds the property of the northern town Marcus's mansion, she will be the richest woman in Daying. Moreover, after Xiaoxie dies, she will be a widow with a high status. She doesn't need to remarry, doesn't need to serve any man, doesn't need to manage the family, and can live a carefree life with a lot of money. This is simply a dream come true. Suru looked at Shenli's happy expression and was confused. Did she hit her head and go crazy? She was going to be a widow, but she was still so happy. "Shenli, are you crazy?" Suro said in surprise. "You are going to be a widow, and you are still smiling?" Shenli came back to her senses. She looked at Suro with a smile. "Thank you for telling me this good news, sister. I'm so happy." Suro was even more confused. She didn't understand what Shenli was happy about. She snorted and said, "You are so stupid. You will regret it sooner or later." Then she turned around and left. After Suru left, Xiaokui ran over and said, "Miss, what's wrong with you? Miss Su said that the northern town Marquis will die in 2 years and you will be a widow. Why are you still happy?" Shenli laughed and said, "Xiaokui, this is a good thing, a great good thing. Think about it. After 2 years, the northern town Marcus will die, and I will inherit all his property. At that time, I will be a rich and powerful widow. I don't need to serve any man, don't need to manage the family, and can live a carefree life. Isn't this great?" Xiaokui was stunned. She thought about it carefully, and it seemed that it was really a good thing. But she still said, "But miss, the northern town Marcus is so scary. What if he bullies you before he dies?" "Don't worry," Shenli said confidently. "I have my own way to deal with him. As long as I don't provoke him, he won't bother me. After all, he married me just to use the Su family's power. He won't waste time on me." Sure enough, 3 days later, someone from the northern town Marcus's mansion came. It was Xiaoxie's personal guard, Zhang Hu. Zhang Hu was a tall and strong man with a serious expression. "Miss Shen, my lord asked me to pass a message to you," Zhang Hu said in a deep voice. "After you marry into the mansion, my lord has 3 rules for you. First, you are not allowed to ask about the affairs of the mansion. Second, you are not allowed to interfere with the military affairs of my lord. Third, my lord will not give you any children and will not let you take charge of the family's finances. You just need to stay in your courtyard and not cause trouble. If you can do these 3 things, my lord will guarantee your safety and prosperity." Shenli was overjoyed when she heard this. These 3 rules were exactly what she wanted. Don't ask about the mansion's affairs, don't interfere with military affairs, don't have children, don't take charge of finances. That means she can do whatever she wants in her courtyard, and she doesn't need to do anything. She can just wait for 2 years to inherit the property. She pretended to be sad and wiped her eyes with a handkerchief. I understand. I will obey the Marquise's rules." Zhang Hu didn't doubt her. He thought that Shenli was sad because she was wronged. He nodded and said, "Very well. My lord will send someone to pick you up on the wedding day. You just need to prepare well." After Zhang Hu left, Xiaokui said anxiously, "Miss, the Marquis is too much. How can he treat you like this?" Shenli put down the handkerchief and laughed. "Too much? No, this is great. Xiaokui, quickly prepare my favorite snacks and pastries. I need to celebrate." Xiaokui was completely confused. She didn't understand why her young lady was so happy, but she still went to prepare the snacks as Shenli ordered. Shenli leaned back on the chair, humming a little tune. She felt that her life in this world was really going to be smooth sailing. She just needed to wait for 2 years, and she could become a rich and free old lady. What a wonderful life. Chapter 3, The Wedding Night, the first meeting with the cold Marquise. A month passed quickly. On the wedding day, the Shen mansion was decorated with lanterns and colored streamers, and it was very lively. But Shenli didn't have much feeling. She was just thinking about how to spend her free time in the northern town Marquis's mansion. The wedding procession of the northern town Marquis's mansion was extremely grand. There were hundreds of servants and soldiers, and the dowry was lined up for several streets. The people in the capital crowded on both sides of the street to watch the excitement. Shenli sat in the red sedan chair, her head covered with a red veil. She could hear the cheers and exclamations of the people outside. But she was not excited at all. She just closed her eyes and rested her mind. After a long time, the sedan chair stopped. The maid helped her get out of the sedan chair and walked into the northern town Marquise's mansion. The mansion was even bigger and more luxurious than she had imagined. The corridors were connected, and the pavilions and terraces were scattered. It was like a palace. The wedding ceremony was held in a hurry. Xiaoche didn't even show up during the worship ceremony. It was his nephew, Xiaoyu, who replaced him. Shenli didn't care. She just wanted to finish the ceremony quickly and go back to her courtyard to rest. Finally, after the ceremony, she was sent to the bridal chamber. The bridal chamber was decorated beautifully with red silk and satin everywhere. But there was no one else except her and Xiaokui. "Miss, the Marquis didn't come to the bridal chamber," Xiaokui said with some dissatisfaction. "It's okay," Shenli said casually. "He didn't come just in time. I can rest in peace." She took off the heavy phoenix crown, and Xiaopei changed into a comfortable light dress and then lay down on the big bed. "Xiaokui, you can go back to rest too. I don't need you here." "But miss, it's the wedding night. I should stay here to serve you," Xiaokui said. "No need," Shenli said. "The Marquise won't come. You can go back. I want to sleep for a while." Xiaokui had no choice but to leave the bridal chamber. Shenli lay on the bed, smelling the faint scent of sandalwood in the room. She felt very relaxed. She thought, from today on, she will be the mistress of the northern town Marquis's mansion in name only. She can eat, drink, and play every day, and wait for 2 years to inherit the property. This is really a life of bliss. She fell asleep soon. In the middle of the night, Shenli was woken up by the sound of the door being pushed open. She opened her eyes and saw a tall figure walking in. The man was wearing a black robe, and his face was hidden in the shadow of the candlelight, so she couldn't see his face clearly. But she could feel a strong sense of oppression from him. It must be Xiaoche. Shenli quickly closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep. She didn't want to have any interaction with him. The man walked to the bed and stood there for a while. Then he reached out and lifted the quilt. Shenli's body stiffened, but she still didn't move. But the man didn't do anything to her. He just looked at her for a while, then turned around and walked to the outer room. He lay down on the couch in the outer room and fell asleep. Shenli breathed a sigh of relief. She thought, it seems that Xiaoche really doesn't want to have anything to do with her. That's great. The next morning, Shenli woke up early. She found that Xiaoche had already left. She got up and washed up, then asked the maid to bring breakfast. The breakfast was very rich, with all kinds of pastries, porridge, and side dishes. Shenli ate happily. After breakfast, she asked the maid to take her to her courtyard. According to Zhang Hu's words, she would live in the quiet garden in the west of the mansion. The quiet garden was very beautiful, with a small lake and a pavilion. It was a very quiet place. Shenli was very satisfied with the quiet garden. She decided to decorate it according to her own preferences. She asked Xiaokui to take out some of her mother's dowry and buy some flowers, plants, and antiques to decorate the courtyard. In the next few days, Shenli stayed in the quiet garden and didn't go out. She either read books, drank tea, or supervised the servants to decorate the courtyard. She lived a very comfortable life. One day, when Shenli was lying on the recliner in the courtyard eating grapes peeled by Xiaokui, She heard the sound of footsteps. She looked up and saw a man walking into the courtyard. The man was wearing a silver armor, and his face was handsome but cold. His eyes were like ice, and his whole body exuded a strong sense of killing. It was Xiaoxie. Shenli was a little surprised. She didn't expect Xiaoxie to come to her courtyard. She quickly sat up and saluted. "I have seen the marquis." Xiaoxie didn't speak. He just looked around the quiet garden. The courtyard was decorated very beautifully with all kinds of rare flowers and plants. There was a recliner under the big tree and a small table next to it with a plate of grapes and a pot of tea. It looked very comfortable. Then he looked at Shenli. Shenli was wearing a light pink dress. Her hair was tied up in a simple bun, and there was a faint smile on her face. She looked very relaxed and comfortable, completely different from the sad and wronged look he had imagined. Xiaoxie's eyebrows frowned slightly. He thought that Shenli would be sad because of his neglect, but he didn't expect her to live so happily. This made him feel a little uncomfortable. "What are you doing?" Xiaoxie asked in a cold voice. "Returning to the marquise. I'm resting," Shenli said calmly. "Resting?" Xiao sneered. "You are living a very comfortable life in my mansion. The marquise allowed me to stay in the courtyard and not cause trouble. I'm just following the marquis's orders," Shenli said without changing her expression. Xiaoxie was choked by her words. He didn't know what to say. He turned around and was about to leave when he saw the servants carrying a piano and a group of dancers into the courtyard. "What are these for?" Xiaoxie asked. "Returning to the marquis, I want to listen to music and watch dances, so I asked them to come," Shenli said naturally. Xiaoxie's face turned cold. He had been busy with military affairs all day, and he was exhausted. But Shenli was here enjoying herself, listening to music and watching dances. This made him even more uncomfortable. "Take them away," Xiao said sharply. The servants were so scared that they quickly stopped and looked at Shenli. Shenli frowned. She didn't understand why Xiaoxie was so angry. She just wanted to enjoy her life. She said, "Marquise, this is my courtyard. I can do whatever I want. The marquis said that I just need to not cause trouble. Listening to music and watching dances is not causing trouble." I said, "Take them away." Xiaoxi's voice was even colder. There was a hint of killing intent in his eyes. The servants were so scared that they quickly carried the piano and the dancers away. Shenli was a little angry. She thought that Xiaoxie was too unreasonable, but she didn't dare to argue with him. She could only lower her head and say nothing. Xiaoxie looked at her and felt even more irritable. He snorted and turned around to leave. After Xiaoxie left, Xiaoqui ran over and said, "Miss, the marquis is too bullying. How can he stop you from listening to music and watching dances?" Shenli took a deep breath and said, "It's okay. He's just in a bad mood. Let's not provoke him. We can listen to music and watch dances secretly at night." Xiaoqui nodded. "Yes, miss." Shenli lay back on the recliner and picked up a grape. She thought, Xiaoqie is really a strange person. He doesn't want to have anything to do with her, but he doesn't want her to live too comfortably. Well, it doesn't matter. As long as she doesn't violate his 3 rules, he can't do anything to her. She just needs to endure for 2 years. Chapter 4, The Marquise's Unhappiness, Shenli's Happy Life. Since that day, Xiaoxie would come to the quiet garden every few days, but he never said anything to Shenli. He just stood there and watched her. Sometimes he would see Shenli lying on the recliner eating snacks. Sometimes he would see her playing with the cats in the courtyard, and sometimes he would see her reading books under the tree. Every time he saw Shenli living so comfortably, Xiaoxie would feel very unhappy. He was busy with military affairs and government affairs every day, and he was exhausted. But Shenli, who was his wife in name only, was living a carefree life. This made him feel that it was unfair. One day, Xiaoxie came back from the barracks. He was covered in dust and looked very tired. He walked into the quiet garden and saw Shenli sitting in the pavilion drinking tea, and there was a table of delicious food in front of her. The servants were waiting on her carefully. "What are you doing?" Xiaoqie asked in a cold voice. "Returning to the marquise, I'm having dinner," Shenli said calmly. She didn't even look up at him. Xiaoqie walked to the pavilion and looked at the table of food. There were braised pork, crispy chicken, fish soup, and all kinds of delicate pastries. It was much richer than his dinner. Who allowed you to eat such rich food? Xiaoche asked. I used my own money to buy it, Shenli said. My mother left me a lot of money. I can buy whatever I want. Xiaoche was stunned. He forgot that Shenli was the daughter of the Su family and had a lot of dowry. He couldn't say anything. He just stood there and looked at her. Shenli ignored him and continued to eat. She picked up a piece of braised pork and put it in her mouth. The meat was tender and juicy, and it tasted very delicious. Xiaoce's stomach gurgled. He hadn't eaten anything since noon. Looking at the delicious food in front of him, he felt a little hungry. Shenli noticed his gaze. She thought for a while and said, Marquise, if you haven't eaten yet, you can eat some with me. Xiaoche wanted to refuse, but his stomach was too hungry. He nodded and sat down opposite Shenli. Shenli asked the servant to add a pair of bowls and chopsticks. Xiaoche picked up the chopsticks and took a bite of the crispy chicken. The chicken was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, and it tasted very good. He hadn't eaten such delicious food for a long time. The two of them ate in silence. Shenli ate slowly, enjoying the food. Xiaoce ate quickly, as if he was in a hurry. After dinner, Shenli asked the servant to bring a pot of tea. She poured a cup for Xiaoce and said, Marquis, drink some tea to digest. Xiaoce took the teacup and took a sip. The tea was fragrant and mellow. He felt a little more relaxed. Why are you so happy every day? Xiaoce suddenly asked. Shenli was stunned. She looked at Xiaoce and said, Why not be happy? I have money, I have a place to live, and I don't have to do anything. Isn't this a happy life? Xiaoce frowned. Don't you feel wronged? I married you just to use the Su family's power. I won't give you any children, and I won't let you take charge of the family's finances. You are just a nominal mistress of the mansion. I don't feel wronged, Shenli said with a smile. I think this is very good. I don't want to have children, and I don't want to take charge of the family's finances. I just want to live a carefree life. Xiaoche was even more confused. He had never met a woman like Shenli. Most women wanted to get the favor of their husbands, have children, and take charge of the family's finances. But Shenli was the opposite. She didn't care about any of these things. You are really strange, Xiaoche said. Maybe, Shenli said. But I like my current life. Xiaoche didn't say anything else. He finished his tea and left the quiet garden. After Xiaoche left, Xiaoqui said, Miss, the Marquis seems to be a little different today. He didn't lose his temper. Maybe, Shenli said casually. He's just tired. Let's not think about him. Let's go to the street tomorrow to buy some new clothes. Great, miss, Xiaoqui said happily. The next day, Shenli took Xiaoqui and several servants to the street. The capital was very lively, with all kinds of shops and stalls. Shenli was very interested. She walked from one shop to another, buying all kinds of snacks, clothes, and toys. When she passed a jewelry shop, she saw a very beautiful pearl hairpin. She wanted to buy it, but at this time, a woman's voice came. This hairpin is mine. Shenli turned around and saw that the woman was Suro. Suro was wearing a beautiful dress, and she was followed by several servants. She walked up to Shenli and said with a sneer, Sister, you are so leisurely. You actually have time to go shopping. But this hairpin is what I like. You can't buy it. Shenli frowned. She didn't expect to meet Suro here. She said coldly, The hairpin is in the shop. Whoever pays first will get it. Why can't I buy it? Because I like it, Suro said unreasonably. The shopkeeper, I want this hairpin. How much is it? The shopkeeper was in a dilemma. He knew that Shenli was the northern town Marcus's wife, and Suro was the minister of Right's stepdaughter. He didn't dare to offend either of them. Shenli said to the shopkeeper, Shopkeeper, I'll pay twice the price for this hairpin. Suro was angry. Shenli, you are deliberately trying to make things difficult for me. I'm not making things difficult for you. I just want to buy this hairpin, Shenli said calmly. If you want it, you can pay a higher price than me. Suru's face turned red. She didn't have that much money. Her mother gave her a monthly allowance, but it was not enough to buy such an expensive hairpin. At this time, a man's voice came. Ruer, what's wrong? Shenli looked up and saw that the man was Lin Wenxuan. Lin Wenxuan was wearing a scholar's robe, and he looked very elegant. He walked up to Suro and put his arm around her waist. Suro saw Lin Wenchuan and immediately showed a pitiful look. Wenchuan, sister wants to rob my hairpin. Lin Wenchuan looked at Shenli and frowned. He used to think that Shenli was weak and incompetent, but now she looked very confident and beautiful. This made him feel a little strange. He said to Shenli, Miss Shen, this hairpin is what Ruer likes. Can you give it to her? Shenli sneered. Mr. Lin, this hairpin is in the shop. It's not yours or Su Ro's. Why should I give it to her? If you want to buy it for her, you can pay a higher price than me. Lin Wenchuan's face turned red. He was a poor scholar, and he didn't have that much money. He said embarrassedly, Miss Shen, you are now the Northern Town Marcus's wife. You have a lot of money. Why do you have to argue with Ruer over a hairpin? It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of principle. Shenli said, I like this hairpin, so I want to buy it. If you can't afford it, don't blame others. Then she said to the shopkeeper, Shopkeeper, wrap up the hairpin. I'll pay now. The shopkeeper quickly wrapped up the hairpin and handed it to Shenli. Shenli took out a silver ingot and gave it to the shopkeeper. Suro looked at the hairpin in Shenli's hand and was so angry that she wanted to cry. Lin Wenchuan felt very embarrassed. He didn't know what to do. Shenli put the hairpin in her hair and said to Suro and Lin Wenchuan with a smile, Thank you for helping me choose such a beautiful hairpin. Goodbye. Then she turned around and left with Xiaokui and the servants. Suro stamped her feet angrily. Wenchuan, look at her. She's so arrogant. Lin Wenchuan sighed. Ruer, forget it. She is now the Northern Town Marquise's wife. We can't afford to offend her. Suro was even more angry, but she had no choice. Shenli walked happily on the street. She felt that it was really refreshing to defeat Suro and Lin Wenchuan. She continued to shop, buying a lot of things. When she returned to the Northern Town Marquis's mansion, she found that Xiaosei was already in the quiet garden. He was sitting on the stone bench, looking at the things she bought. You bought a lot of things, Xiaosei said in a cold voice. Yes, Shenli said happily. The street is very lively. I bought a lot of interesting things. Look at this hairpin. It's very beautiful, right? She took off the pearl hairpin and showed it to Xiaosei. Xiaosei looked at the hairpin. It was indeed very beautiful, with a big pearl in the middle, surrounded by small diamonds. It looked very luxurious. He said, You spent a lot of money. It's okay. I have money. Shenli said casually. She put the hairpin back in her hair. Xiaosei looked at her bright smile and felt a little irritable again. He said, You are too wasteful. I'm not wasteful. I'm just enjoying life, Shenli said. Life is short. Why not enjoy it? Xiaosei didn't say anything. He stood up and left. Shenli didn't care. She asked the servants to put away the things she bought, then lay down on the recliner and continued to eat snacks. She thought, Xiaosei is really a boring person. He doesn't know how to enjoy life at all. But it's okay. As long as he doesn't interfere with her, she can live happily. Chapter 5. The Conspiracy of Madame Liu and Suru, Shenli's Counterattack. Shenli's happy life didn't last long. Madame Liu and Suru didn't want to see her live so comfortably. They began to think of ways to frame her. One day, Madame Liu sent someone to the Northern Town Marquise's mansion, saying that she was ill and wanted to see Shenli. Shenli knew that Madame Liu must be up to no good, but she couldn't refuse. She had to take Xiaokui to the Shen mansion. When she arrived at the Shen mansion, she saw Madame Liu lying on the bed, looking very weak. Suro was sitting beside the bed, crying. Lear, you're here, Madame Liu said weakly. I'm so happy to see you. Mother, are you okay? Shenli said coldly. She didn't believe that Madame Liu was really ill. I'm not okay, Madame Liu said, coughing a few times. I've been feeling unwell for the past few days. The doctor said that I need to take a kind of medicinal herb called ginseng, but our family doesn't have it. I heard that you have a lot of precious medicinal herbs in the Northern Town Marquess's mansion. Can you lend me some? Shenli sneered. She knew that Madame Liu was trying to cheat her medicinal herbs. She said, I'm sorry, Mother. I don't have any ginseng. The medicinal herbs in the mansion are all prepared by the Marquess's personal doctor. I can't take them without the Marquess's permission. You are lying. Suru stood up and said angrily. I heard that the Northern Town Marquess's mansion has a lot of precious medicinal herbs. You just don't want to lend them to my mother. I'm not lying, Shenli said calmly. If you don't believe me, you can ask the Marquis's personal doctor. Madame Liu sighed. Lear, I know you still blame me for what happened before, but I'm your stepmother after all. Now I'm ill. Can't you help me? I have no obligation to help you, Shenli said. You have your own daughter. You can ask Suru to help you. After saying that, she turned around and left the Shen mansion. Madame Liu and Suru looked at each other. They didn't expect Shenli to be so tough. Suru said angrily, Mother, she is too arrogant. We can't let her go like this. Madame Liu's eyes turned cold. Don't worry, I have a way to deal with her. I heard that the Marquis's nephew Xiao Yu is coming to the mansion tomorrow. We can use Xiao Yu to frame her. Suru's eyes lit up. Mother, what's your plan? Madame Liu whispered her plan to Suru. Suru listened and smiled maliciously. The next day, Xiao Yu came to the northern town Marquis's mansion. Xiao Yu was a 15-year-old boy, and he was very cute. He liked Shenli very much because Shenli would give him a lot of snacks and toys every time he came. Shenli was playing with Xiao Yu in the quiet garden when Suro came. Suro was holding a plate of pastries in her hand. She said with a smile, Sister, I made some pastries for you and cousin Xiao Yu. You can try them. Shenli frowned. She didn't believe that Suro would be so kind. She said, Thank you, but I'm not hungry. Xiao Yu said happily, I want to eat. I want to eat. Suro handed the plate to Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu picked up a pastry and ate it, but as soon as he ate it, he felt a sharp pain in his stomach. He fell to the ground and rolled around, crying loudly. Shenli's face changed slightly. She quickly squatted down and checked Xiao Yu's condition. His face was pale, and cold sweat kept breaking out on his forehead. It was obvious that he had been poisoned. She raised her head and stared sharply at Suro. What did you put in the pastries? Suro took a step back in panic, but soon put on a wronged expression and shouted loudly, Sister, what are you talking about? I didn't put anything. These pastries are made by me personally. How could there be poison? Could it be that you poisoned cousin Xiao Yu and want to frame me? As soon as she finished speaking, Madame Liu rushed in with a group of servants. She looked at Xiao Yu lying on the ground, screamed, and threw herself beside him. Oh, my poor nephew. What's wrong with you? Who hurt you? Suru threw herself into Madame Liu's arms and cried, Mother, it's sister. She accused me of poisoning cousin Xiao Yu, but I really didn't do it. The pastries are clearly fine. Maybe it's sister who hates cousin Xiao Yu and poisoned him, then wants to frame me. Madame Liu raised her head, glared at Shenli with hatred, and said sharply, Shenli, how dare you be so vicious? Xiao Yu is the Marquis's beloved nephew. If something happens to him, the Marquis will not spare you. Come on, take this vicious woman down, and wait for the Marquis to punish her. The servants brought by Madame Liu rushed forward, wanting to grab Shenli. Xiao Kui quickly stood in front of Shenli and shouted, Don't touch my young lady. It's clearly Miss Su who did it. She's the one who brought the pastries. Shut up, Madame Liu shouted. A lowly maid dares to talk back. I think you're in cahoots with your young lady. Just as the servants were about to pounce on them, the sound of heavy footsteps came from outside the courtyard. Everyone turned around and saw Xiao She striding in with a cold face. He had just returned from the military camp and heard the commotion in the quiet garden, so he came over immediately. When he saw Xiao Yu lying on the ground, his eyes turned cold instantly. He walked over quickly and picked up Xiao Yu. His voice was low and dangerous. What's wrong with you? Madame Liu immediately knelt down and cried, Marquise, you have to make the decision for us. It's Shenli. She poisoned Yuer because she hated him and then wanted to frame Ruer. You must punish this vicious woman severely. Suru also knelt down and sobbed, Marquise, please believe me. I really didn't poison cousin Xiao Yu. It's all Shenli's conspiracy. Shenli stood calmly, not in the slightest panic. She looked at Xiao She and said, Marquise, things are not what they say. The pastries were brought by Suru, and Yuer fell ill immediately after eating them. If you don't believe me, you can check the remaining pastries. Also, the servants in the courtyard saw everything just now. They can testify for me. Xiao She's eyes swept over the remaining pastries on the stone table, then looked at the servants in the courtyard. The servants were so scared that they knelt down one after another. One of the older servants said tremblingly, Marquise, the pastries, The pastries were indeed brought by Miss Su. Miss Shen didn't touch them before young Master Xiao ate them. Madame Lu's face changed. "You're lying? You're all bribed by Shen Li." "I'm not lying," the servant said. The entire courtyard saw it. Xiao Che didn't say anything. He ordered his personal guard, Zhang Hu, take the remaining pastries to the imperial doctor immediately for inspection. Also, invite the imperial doctor to treat Yue right away. "Yes, my lord." Zhang Hu took the pastries and left in a hurry. At this time, Xiao Yu's condition became more and more serious. He kept moaning in pain. Xiao Che's face was as cold as ice. He glared at Su Ru and Madame Liu. "If Yue has any accident, I will make you pay with your lives." Madame Liu and Su Ru were so scared that their legs went weak. They didn't expect that the servants would dare to testify against them, and they didn't expect Xiao Che to be so protective of Xiao Yu. They could only kowtow repeatedly and shout, "We are wronged." Shen Li stood aside quietly. She knew that the truth would soon come out. She had already noticed that Suru's expression was unnatural when she handed the pastries to Xiao Yu, so she had been on guard. Now it seemed that her guess was correct. Not long after, the imperial doctor arrived. He quickly checked Xiao Yu's pulse and then gave him an antidote. After taking the antidote, Xiao Yu's pain gradually eased and his breathing became stable. At the same time, Zhang Hu came back with the inspection result. He held up the pastries and said, "My lord, the imperial doctor has checked. There is croton powder in the pastries. It is a strong laxative. If you eat too much, it can even be fatal." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone was shocked. Croton powder was a highly toxic substance. Suru actually used such a vicious thing to frame Shen Li. Xiao Xi's eyes were filled with killing intent. He stared at Suru and Madame Liu. "Now what else do you have to say?" Madame Liu knew that they couldn't deny it anymore. She threw herself at Xiao Xi's feet and cried, "Marquise, it's all my fault. It's me who instigated Ruer to do it. I just can't bear to see Shen Li live so comfortably, so I wanted to frame her and let her be punished by you. Please forgive Ruer, she's still young." Suru was also scared out of her wits. She knelt on the ground and kept kowtowing. "Marquise, I know I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again. Please forgive me." Shen Li looked at them coldly. She didn't feel the slightest sympathy. These two people had been bullying the original owner and now wanted to frame her. They deserved to be punished. Xiao Che's voice was cold. "You wanted to frame my wife and hurt my nephew. You are unforgivable. Zhang Hu, send these two people to the government and let them be punished according to the law." "Yes, my lord." Zhang Hu waved his hand, and the guards immediately came forward and dragged Madame Liu and Su Ru away. Their screams echoed in the courtyard, but no one pitied them. After they left, Xiao Sei looked at Shen Li. His cold eyes softened a little. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Thank you, Marquis, for clarifying the truth for me." Shen Li said calmly. She didn't expect Xiao Che to help her so straightforwardly. Xiao Che nodded. He looked at Xiao Yu, who was already falling asleep, and said, "You take good care of Yue here. I'll go to the government to explain the situation." "Okay," Shen Li agreed. After Xiao Che left, Xiao Kui breathed a sigh of relief. "Miss, you were so calm just now. I was so scared to death." Shen Li smiled faintly. "There's nothing to be scared of. The truth will always come out. Those who do bad things will always be punished." She walked to the bed and looked at Xiao Yu, who was sleeping soundly. She thought, Madame Liu and Su Ru have been dealt with, and the biggest trouble around her is gone. Now she can continue to live her happy life and wait for 2 years to inherit the property. But she didn't expect that this incident would make her and Xiao Sei's relationship change subtly. Chapter 6. Subtle Changes, Unconscious Concern. After Madame Liu and Su Ru were taken away by the government, the case was tried quickly. Because there were witnesses and material evidence, the government sentenced Madame Liu to be exiled to the border and Su Ru to be imprisoned for 3 years. The news spread to the Shen mansion, and Shen Guang was so angry that he fell ill. He had never thought that his second wife and stepdaughter would be so bold as to frame the northern town marquis's wife. From then on, he never dared to interfere in Shen Li's affairs again. With the troublemakers gone, Shen Li's life in the northern town marquis's mansion became even more comfortable. but she found that Xiaoxie came to the quiet garden more frequently than before. He still didn't say much, but he would stay for a while every time. Sometimes he would watch Shenli read a book. Sometimes he would watch her feed the fish in the small lake. And sometimes he would just sit quietly on the stone bench and drink tea. At first, Shenli was a little uncomfortable with his presence. She was used to being alone and didn't like being disturbed. But gradually, she got used to it. She even found that Xiaoxie's presence didn't affect her much. She could still do what she wanted to do. One afternoon, Shenli was making pastries in the kitchen of the quiet garden. She had nothing to do, so she wanted to try making the modern pastries she had eaten in her previous life. Xiaokui was helping her by the side. The kitchen was filled with the sweet smell of butter and eggs. Just as Shenli was putting the pastries into the oven, Xiaoqie walked in. He smelled the sweet smell and frowned slightly. "What are you doing?" "I'm making pastries," Shenli said without turning around. "I want to try a new flavor." Xiaoqie walked to her side and looked at the pastries in the baking tray. They were round and small, with a layer of sesame seeds on top. They looked very different from the pastries he usually ate. "What kind of pastries are these?" he asked. "I call them egg-tarts," Shenli said. "They are soft and sweet. They taste very good." Xiaoqie didn't speak. He just stood by and watched Shenli busy. Shenli's hands were very dexterous. She was wearing a light blue apron, and her hair was tied up with a white ribbon. The sunlight came through the window and fell on her face, making her skin look fair and translucent. There was a faint smile on her face, which looked very warm. For some reason, Xiaoxi's heart skipped a beat. He had never seen such a Shenli before. She was no longer the cold and indifferent woman who only cared about money. At this moment, she looked like an ordinary girl who loved life. After a while, the egg tarts were baked. Shenli took them out of the oven and put them on a plate. The egg tarts were golden brown, and the sweet smell became even stronger. She picked up one and blew on it, then handed it to Xiaoxi. "Try it. It's still a little hot." Xiaoxi hesitated for a moment, then took the egg tart. He took a small bite. The crust was crispy, and the filling was soft and sweet. It was indeed very delicious. He had never eaten such a delicious pastry before. "It's good," he said softly. Shenli's eyes lit up. "Really? Then you can eat more. I made a lot." Xiaoqie nodded. He ate another egg tart. This time he ate more slowly, savoring the sweet taste. The kitchen was very quiet, except for the sound of them eating. Shenli also picked up an egg tart and ate it. She felt very happy to share the food she made with others. Since that day, Xiaoxie would come to the quiet garden every afternoon. Sometimes he would eat the pastries made by Shenli. Sometimes he would drink the tea she brewed, and sometimes he would just sit there and watch her do things. Shenli didn't ask him why he came, and he didn't explain. The two of them maintained a strange but harmonious balance. One day, Xiaoqie came back from the military camp with a wound on his arm. It was a sword wound, not very deep, but it was bleeding. He didn't go to see the military doctor first. Instead, he went directly to the quiet garden. When Shenli saw the wound on his arm, her face changed slightly. She quickly asked Xiaokui to bring the medicine box. She took out the hemostatic medicine and bandages and said to Xiaoxie, "Sit down, I'll bandage it for you." Xiaoqie was stunned. He didn't expect Shenli to care about him. He sat down on the stone bench and let Shenli bandage his wound. Shenli's movements were gentle but quick. She carefully cleaned the wound with alcohol, then sprinkled the hemostatic medicine on it, and finally wrapped it with a bandage. "Be careful next time," Shenli said softly. "The battlefield is dangerous. Don't hurt yourself." Xiaoqie looked at her. Her eyes were full of concern. This was the first time someone had cared about his safety besides his nephew. His heart felt warm. He nodded. "I will." At this moment, Xiaoyu ran into the courtyard. He had recovered from his illness and came to play with Shenli. When he saw the wound on Xiaoqie's arm, he was shocked. "Uncle, what's wrong with your arm? Did you get hurt in the battle?" "It's okay. It's just a small wound," Xiaoqie said with a smile. He rarely smiled, but when he smiled, he looked much softer. "Uncle, you have to be careful," Xiao Yu said. He walked to Xiaoqie's side and held his hand. "Aunt Shenli bandaged your wound, right? Aunt Shenli is so kind." Shenli's face turned slightly red. She didn't know how to respond. She quickly changed the subject. I made your favorite candied haws today. Come and eat them. Great, thank you, Aunt Shenli, Xiao Yu said happily. He ran to the table and picked up the candied haws. Xiao Che watched the interaction between Shenli and Xiao Yu, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He felt that this scene was very warm. He had never felt such a sense of home before. His life had always been full of killing and fighting. He had never thought that he could have such a peaceful and happy time. That night, Xiao Sei didn't go back to his study. Instead, he stayed in the outer room of Shenli's bedroom. Shenli was a little nervous at first, but she soon fell asleep. She didn't know that Xiao Tse sat by the bed and watched her sleep all night. He looked at her peaceful face and thought, maybe it's not a bad thing to have such a wife by his side. The next morning, Shenli woke up and found that Xiao Tse was still in the outer room. He was lying on the couch, fast asleep. The sunlight fell on his face, making him look less cold. Shenli walked over gently. She looked at his face and thought, Xiao Tse is actually not as scary as he looks. He is just a man who is used to being alone. Just as Shenli was about to leave, Xiao Tse woke up. He saw Shenli standing by the couch and was a little surprised. You're awake. Yes, Shenli said. Did you sleep well? Yes, Xiao Tse said. He sat up and stretched. I'm going to the military camp. I'll come back to eat at night. Okay, Shenli said. She didn't expect Xiao Tse to tell her his schedule. This was a rare thing. After Xiao Tse left, Xiao Kui came in. She looked at Shenli and said with a smile, Miss, the Marquis seems to care about you very much now. He even stayed here last night. Shenli's face turned red. She said, Don't talk nonsense. He just didn't want to go back to the study. But in her heart, she knew that something had changed. She no longer only thought about inheriting Xiao Tse's property. She began to care about him unconsciously. She was a little confused. She didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. At this time, a servant came to report. Madam, there is a woman outside the mansion who says she is the Marquise's old friend. She wants to see the Marquis. Shenli's heart skipped a beat. Old friend of Xiao Tse? She had never heard Xiao Tse mention any female friends. Who could it be? Chapter 7. The uninvited guest, the Marquis passed. Shenli hesitated for a moment, then said to the servant, Bring her to the main hall first. I'll go inform the Marquise. She knew that it was not appropriate for her to meet Xiao Tse's old friend privately, so she had to send someone to the military camp to inform Xiao Tse. When Xiao Tse received the news, he was in the middle of training soldiers. He frowned slightly when he heard that a female old friend had come. He told Zhang Hu to continue training and left the military camp alone. When Xiao Tse arrived at the main hall, he saw a woman in a light purple dress sitting there. The woman had a gentle appearance and a faint smile on her face. When she saw Xiao Tse, her eyes lit up and she stood up quickly. Xiao Tse, long time no see. Meng Yao? Xiao Tse's voice was cold, with no trace of warmth. What are you doing here? Shenli stood aside and listened quietly. So her name was Meng Yao. From Xiao Tse's tone, their relationship didn't seem to be as simple as old friends. Meng Yao's smile faded a little, but she still said softly, I heard that you got married, so I came to congratulate you. I also want to ask you for a favor. My father is seriously ill, and only the imperial doctor in the palace can cure him. I know you have a good relationship with the imperial doctor, so I hope you can help me. Xiao Tse's face was expressionless. I can help you ask the imperial doctor to go and see your father, but after that, don't appear in front of me again. Meng Yao's eyes were filled with tears. Xiao Tse, do you really hate me that much? Back then, I left you because my family forced me. I had no choice. It's all in the past, Xiao Tse said indifferently. I have my own life now. Don't disturb it. Shenli watched this scene silently. She felt a little uncomfortable in her heart, but she didn't say anything. She knew that everyone had a past, and she had no right to interfere with Xiao Tse's past. Xiao Tse turned to Shenli and said gently, Lier, you go back to the quiet garden first. I'll handle this matter. Shenli nodded. Okay. She turned around and left the main hall. When she walked out of the main hall, she heard Meng Yao's crying voice behind her. She sighed softly and quickened her pace. Back in the quiet garden, Xiao Kui saw that Shenli's expression was not good, so she asked worriedly, Miss, what's wrong? Is that woman difficult to deal with? It's okay, Shenli said. She just came to ask the Marquise for a favor. The Marquise will handle it. But in her heart, she was a little confused. She didn't know why she felt uncomfortable. Was it because she cared about Xiaosei? She shook her head, trying to get this thought out of her mind. She was just waiting for 2 years to inherit the property and live a carefree life. She shouldn't have any feelings for Xiaosei. In the evening, Xiaosei came to the quiet garden. He saw Shenli sitting on the stone bench in a daze, so he walked over and sat down beside her. What are you thinking about? Shenli came back to her senses. Nothing. Did you handle the matter? Yes, Xiaosei said. I asked the imperial doctor to go to Meng Yao's house. She won't come again. That's good, Shenli said softly. Xiaosei looked at her and said seriously, Lear, I want to explain to you about Meng Yao. She was my comrade-in-arms sister. We knew each other when we were young, but we have no other relationship. Back then, her family forced her to marry a nobleman, so she left the capital. I didn't expect her to come back. Shenli was a little surprised. She didn't expect Xiaosei to take the initiative to explain to her. She looked at Xiaosei and said, I know. You don't need to explain to me. Everyone has a past. Xiaosei's eyes softened. You are different from other women. You never ask me about my past, and you never pester me. But I hope you know that you are the only one in my heart now. Shenli's heart skipped a beat. She quickly lowered her head, her face turning red. She didn't know how to respond to Xiaosei's words. Xiaosei reached out and gently held her hand. His hand was big and warm, wrapping her small hand tightly. Shenli's body stiffened, but she didn't pull her hand back. Lear, I know I was cold to you before. Xiaosei's voice was gentle. But after getting along with you, I found that you are a very lovely person. I like the way you enjoy life, I like the way you smile, and I like the way you care about me. Can you give me a chance to treat you well? Shenli raised her head and looked into Xiaosei's eyes. His eyes were full of sincerity and tenderness. She had never seen such eyes before. Her heart was in a mess. She had always planned to wait for Xiaosei to die and inherit his property, but now she found that she had already fallen in love with him unconsciously. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded slightly. Okay. When Xiaosei saw her nod, a bright smile appeared on his cold face. He pulled Shenli into his arms and hugged her tightly. Shenli leaned against his chest, listening to his strong heartbeat, and felt a sense of security she had never felt before. From that day on, Xiaosei treated Shenli very well. He would accompany her to eat every meal, take her to the street to go shopping, and even take her to the military camp to watch the soldiers train. The servants in the mansion all said that the Marquis had changed, and he was no longer the cold and ruthless person he used to be. Shenli also gradually opened her heart to Xiaosei. She told him about her previous life, about the Shen group, and about her desire to live a carefree life. Xiaosei was very surprised when he heard that Shenli was from another world, but he didn't dislike her. Instead, he felt that she was more unique. One day, when they were walking by the small lake in the mansion, Shenli suddenly said, Xiaosei, do you know? I used to think that you would die on the battlefield in 2 years, and I would inherit your property and live a carefree life. Xiaosei was stunned for a moment, then laughed. So you married me for my property? You little money fan. Shenli blushed. I didn't mean that. At first I really thought so, but later I fell in love with you. Xiaosei hugged her tightly. It's okay. No matter what your original purpose was, as long as you are by my side now, I'm satisfied. And don't worry, I won't die. I will live a long life with you. Shenli smiled and nodded. She knew that Xiaosei would keep his promise. From now on, she no longer needed to think about inheriting property. She just wanted to stay with Xiaosei and live a happy life. Chapter 8. The Wind of War, Mutual Protection. Time passed quickly, and half a year passed. The relationship between Shenli and Xiaosei became more and more intimate. Xiaoyu also liked Shenli more and more. He would run to the quiet garden every day to play with her. But the peaceful life didn't last long. One day, the emperor issued an imperial edict ordering Xiaosei to lead the army to fight against the barbarians in the north. The barbarians had become more and more rampant recently, and they had invaded the border of Daying many times. When Shenli heard the news, her heart tightened. She remembered what Suru had said before, that Xiaoche would die on the battlefield in 2 years. Was this the battle she was talking about? That night, Shenli couldn't sleep. She sat by the bed, waiting for Xiaoche to come back. When Xiaoche came back, he saw Shenli sitting there with a worried expression. He walked over and sat down beside her. "What's wrong? Are you worried about me?" Shenli nodded. "Xiaoche, I'm scared. I'm afraid you won't come back." Xiaoche held her in his arms and said gently, "Don't be afraid. I will come back safely. I promise you. I have you and Yuer now, and I won't let anything happen to myself. But the battlefield is so dangerous." Shenli said with tears in her eyes. "What if something happens to you?" "No," Xiaoche said firmly. "I will be careful, and I have prepared everything. Jianghu will follow me, and he will protect me. You just need to stay at home and wait for me to come back." Shenli knew that Xiaoche had to go. He was a general, and protecting the country was his responsibility. She wiped her tears and said, "Okay, I will wait for you to come back. You must be careful." The next day, Xiaoche led the army to leave the capital. Before leaving, he looked at Shenli with reluctance. "Lier, take care of yourself and Yuer. You too," Shenli said, her voice trembling. After Xiaoce left, Shenli took on the responsibility of taking care of the mansion and Xiaoyu. She was no longer the woman who only knew how to enjoy life. She began to learn how to manage the mansion, how to deal with the servants, and how to comfort Xiaoyu, who missed his uncle. She also sent people to the border many times to inquire about Xiaoxie's news. Every time she received the news that Xiaoxie was safe, she would feel relieved. But when she heard that the battle was fierce, she would be very worried. One day, the person she sent to inquire about the news came back and said that Xiaoxie was injured in the battle and was in a critical condition. Shenli was so scared that she almost fainted. She immediately decided to go to the border to see Xiaoxie. Xiaokui tried to stop her. "Miss, the border is too dangerous. You can't go." "I have to go," Shenli said firmly. "Xiaoche is injured, and I have to be by his side. Don't worry, I will be careful." Shenli took some money and a few trusted servants and set off for the border. The journey to the border was very difficult. They encountered bandits on the way, and the road was also very bumpy. But Shenli didn't give up. She kept thinking about Xiaoxie, and she believed that she would see him safely. After more than 10 days of trekking, Shenli finally arrived at the military camp on the border. When she saw Xiaoche lying on the bed with a pale face, her heart ached. She ran to the bed and held his hand. "Xiaoche, I'm here. Can you hear me?" Xiaoche slowly opened his eyes. When he saw Shenli, he was very surprised. "Liar? Why are you here? It's too dangerous here." "I was worried about you," Shenli said with tears. "How are you feeling now?" "I'm okay," Xiaoche said weakly. "Don't worry about me." Shenli stayed by Xiaoce's bed day and night. She took care of his daily life, fed him medicine, and wiped his body. The soldiers in the military camp all said that the Marquis's wife was a kind and brave woman. With Shenli's careful care, Xiaoce's condition gradually improved. 1 month later, he was able to get out of bed and walk around. He looked at Shenli, who had lost a lot of weight, and felt very distressed. "Lier, you've worked hard." Shenli smiled. "As long as you get better, I don't feel hard." At this time, the general of the barbarian army led the army to attack the military camp again. Xiaoche immediately put on his armor and went to the battlefield. Shenli stood at the gate of the military camp, watching Xiaoxi's figure disappear into the distance. She prayed silently in her heart, "Xiaoce, come back safely." The battle was very fierce. Shenli could hear the sound of swords and guns clashing from a distance. She was very worried, but she didn't dare to cry. She knew that she had to be strong. After a whole day of fighting, the sky gradually darkened. Just when Shenli was about to lose hope, she saw a group of soldiers walking back. The leader was Xiaoce. He was covered in blood, but his eyes were still bright. Shenli ran over quickly. "Xiaoche!" Xiaoche saw Shenli and smiled. "Lier, we won. The barbarians have retreated." Shenli threw herself into his arms and cried, "You're back. You're finally back." Xiaoche hugged her tightly. "I told you I would come back safely." The victory of the battle made the soldiers very happy. They held a celebration banquet that night. Xiao Che took Shenli's hand and introduced her to the soldiers. "This is my wife, Shenli. She is the bravest and kindest woman I have ever met." The soldiers all raised their wine bowls and shouted, "Madam!" Shenli smiled and nodded. She felt very proud of Xiao Se. Chapter 9. Happy Reunion, Peaceful Years. A few days later, Xiao Se led the army back to the capital. The emperor was very happy when he heard that they had won the battle. He rewarded Xiao She with a lot of gold and silver, and also promoted him to be the grand general of the northern expedition. When they returned to the mansion, Xiao Yu ran over quickly and threw himself into Xiao She's arms. "Uncle, you're back." Xiao Shi picked up Xiao Yu and laughed. "Yes, I'm back. Did you listen to Aunt Shenli's words when I was away?" "Yes," Xiao Yu said loudly. "I listened to Aunt Shenli's words very much. Aunt Shenli took good care of me." Shenli smiled and looked at them. The mansion was full of joy again. From then on, Xiao She no longer had to go to the battlefield often. He spent most of his time with Shenli and Xiao Yu. He would accompany Shenli to plant flowers and grass in the garden, take her to the street to taste snacks, and even learn to make egg-tarts with her in the kitchen. Shenli also used her business acumen from her previous life to manage her mother's dowry. She expanded the shops, improved the management methods, and made a lot of money. She became the richest woman in Daying as she had wished before, but now she no longer cared about money. What she cared about was the people around her. 1 year later, Shenli gave birth to a son for Xiao Si. Xiao Se was very happy. He named the child Xiao An, hoping that he would be safe and healthy for the rest of his life. Xiao An grew up day by day. He was very cute and smart, just like Xiao Tse. Xiao Yu also liked his little cousin very much. He would play with Xiao An every day. The mansion was always full of laughter. The servants all said that the Marquis's mansion was like a warm home now. On a sunny afternoon, Shenli was sitting in the pavilion drinking tea. Xiao Che walked over and sat down beside her. He put his arm around her shoulders. "What are you thinking about?" Shenli smiled. "I'm thinking about the past. I didn't expect that I would have such a happy life now. At first, I married you just for your property." Xiao Che laughed. "So I should thank my property? It brought me such a good wife." Shenli leaned against his chest and said softly, "No, I should thank you. Thank you for letting me feel the warmth of home. Thank you for loving me, and thank you for being by my side." Xiao She kissed her forehead. "I should also thank you. Thank you for breaking into my cold world. Thank you for making me a better person, and thank you for giving me such a happy life." The sunlight fell on them, casting a warm glow. In the distance, Xiao Yu was playing with Xiao An in the garden. Their laughter echoed in the air. Shenli closed her eyes and felt the warmth of Xiao Se's arms. She knew that this was the happiness she had been looking for. She no longer needed to think about the past life, nor did she need to worry about the future. She just wanted to cherish the present and spend every happy moment with the people she loved. The years passed slowly. Xiao An grew up to be a talented young man, and Xiao Yu also became a responsible prince. Shenli and Xiao Che grew old together. They would walk in the garden hand in hand every day, talk about the past, and look at the children and grandchildren playing around. On a quiet evening, the sun was setting and the sky was dyed red. Shenli leaned against Xiao Che's side, watching the sunset. She said softly, "Xiao Che, do you think we will be together in the next life?" Xiao Che held her hand tightly. "Yes, no matter in which life, I will find you and love you." Shenli smiled and closed her eyes. The wind blew gently, carrying the fragrance of osmanthus in the garden. The years were quiet and beautiful, and their love would last forever.